ADR Institute and a senior lecturer at the University of the Philippines Asian Center. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Richard Haydarian.
Thank you very much again for that. I'm just a moderator. Don't worry, I'm not going to talk too much. This year really feels different. I've been an alumnus of this arbitration anniversary for the past more than a half a decade, but I can say that this year the energy is very different. I would say it's not only about the arbitration victory, but also a sense of vindication among a lot of us who have been very much invested in making sure that we defend our sovereign rights. We're going to head to our forum very shortly with a couple of questions and all, but let me just make a few very short remarks. I think there are three things to keep in mind. The first thing is, this is not only about the effort of one person or one organization or one government. This has been really a collective resistance by all of us. Folks, Dindo has done a fantastic job writing for the Philippine Daily Inquirer, organizing these events, energetically mobilizing people who care for the country. Of course, Justice Scorpio, our colleagues like Dr. Rene de Castro, a lot of leading experts and a lot of patriots in the Philippines have done really a fantastic job. Because let's just be honest, the past 6 years or so was not easy for people who cared about the South China Sea and West Philippine Sea. There were death threats. There were a lot of gaslighting. You would be accused of being a warmonger by no less than the former president. If you try to assert the Philippine Arbitration Award, he would say that if you do that, there will be war with China. It was really difficult. And then if not for the camaraderie, I don't think we would have been able to hold the line together. So I think just to disabuse people of some misconception, it was not just one journalist or one organization who held the ground. All of us held the ground. It was a job of 1,000 people, and it was 1,000 lashes that we had to resist throughout those years. So I really feel the sense of vindication in the room, that after 6 years of very difficult and torturous moment, here we are. And I think things are moving in the right direction, which brings me to the second point, revival. So it has not been only a question of collective resistance, but also revival. Revival of alliance between us and the United States. I mean, this is a long enduring alliance. Things have been quite difficult and challenging over the years. But now, you could quite confidently say that the Philippines is perhaps emerging as one of the new star allies of the United States after a few years of conversation back and forth. And also here in the Philippines, more and more of us are beginning to appreciate what our alliance with the United States is bringing to the table, especially as we push ahead with the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement and a whole host of initiatives that are going to make sure that Philippines and U.S. alliance is more comprehensive, more deep, and more robust than ever, including on the economic front. So we are very carefully also watching the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, the special trade mission that the Biden administration is going to send to the Philippines. And the last thing I want to say is that, you know, as a scholar of international relations, as someone who has written extensively on Philippine foreign policy over the past decade or so, I'm proud to say that I feel there's a revolution in Philippine foreign policy, including in our outlook in terms of foreign policy. As important as our alliance with the United States is, as consequential as our bilateral relationship with China has been and is going to be, I think there's more appreciation of the Philippines' new place of pride in the international community. I think we feel that we're not just another small power, but a middle power in its own right. And we can reach out to more and more countries. We have ambassadors from Australia, from Germany, from Britain, and we feel that we're dealing with all of these powers, middle powers, on terms that is mutually beneficial, unlike any kind of relationship that we have in the past. So, and this does not have to be exclusive. It doesn't have to be an either-or case. We can maintain a good and stable relationship with China as long as it's something that protects our interests. We're going to maintain a robust alliance with the United States, but that should never stop us from pursuing a whole network of alliances and partnerships all around the world. So I also sense this, you know, new outlook, this revolutionary outlook in Philippine foreign policy, which I think we should have had a long time ago. But I think the time has arrived, and I feel very proud as a Filipino whenever we're in international events, because I know that everyone wants to deal with us, because everyone is appreciating that we have been discovering and rediscovering our strategic autonomy. So I also had to do my own moral crusade kind of speech. I think I was very inspired by the intervention by our colleagues earlier. So on that note, let's move forward with the open forum. Now, obviously, there are certain questions that our audience have had. I'm going to call out folks shortly, but just some basic questions. So there's some specific questions to some of the speakers, but there are also some general questions. Yes, Yes, may I invite the speakers on the stage? I hope I didn't overtalk you guys. Dr. Batang Bakal, yes. The ambassador. Okay. Straight. And then the rest are still with us, right? Online. Yeah, I think it's doing interview. Yeah, okay. So maybe I can start with the other folks while Justice Scorpio and all around. Okay. I think the others are still working on their coffee. Okay, maybe I'll start with the first more specific questions as other comes in. For Colonel Powell, okay, fantastic. Okay, maybe these are the more individual questions you can answer later on. But just for Colonel Powell, what role does public opinion play in West Philippine Sea? Does public opinion shape the government's narrative and actions with regards to the West Philippine Sea? I mean, what does the study show you? And then for Dr. Laksamana, I think he's still joining us, our good friend. Is Dr. Laksamana still with us? Well, the question to him was more operationally, how can the private sector contribute to the Philippines' military modernization? Can we have a kind of a PPP also version for that front if Dr. Laksamana is still with us? And then more general question, going back to what we were talking about a while ago, today marks of course, the 7th anniversary of the Arbitral Award. How do you feel about that? Are we moving in the right direction? Have we lost ground? Can we make up for lost ground? Is there enough diplomatic momentum and capital for us to make sure we can mobilize international support? Or Justice Scorpio, you have mentioned this, perhaps we have already been successfully mobilizing international support to better protect our interests. Maybe Justice Scorpio first, and then the individual question.
Well, thank you. Well, we have definitely lost ground during the Duterte administration. Those are 6 years that we slept, that the government slept on the arbitral award. But I think we have regained the momentum, and we just have to do it. I mean, we're getting more support now. You have the G7, you have India, and the other countries will follow, I understand. So I think we are getting the support now because we are showing that we are asserting our sovereign rights. If we don't assert our sovereign rights, the other countries will not protect us. They said, why will we go in front of you? You assert your rights and we will support you. We cannot assert it for you. I think, yes, we have lost time, but we cannot cry over that. We just have to proceed and start again where we left off.
But Justice Scorpio, how do you feel about the fact that, of course, you have more and more freedom of navigation operations by the Americans? You have more patrols, open access patrols by other countries. Do you think that's kind of a partial implementation of the arbitral award in a sense?
Yes,
Or are you consistent with that?
whenever the U.S. and its allies sail in the West Philippine Sea, they are telling China and the rest of the world, we can sail here under freedom of navigation and overflight because this is the EEZ of a coastal state. Now, in the West Philippine Sea, there is only one coastal state, the Philippines. And so, in fact, the U.S. and its allies are enforcing the arbitral award for us. We should be welcoming the U.S. We should, in fact, join them because that's the significance. Can you just imagine if today the U.S. will withdraw, the allies of the U.S. will withdraw, they will not enter the South China Sea anymore. What will happen? China will now make the Nine Dash Line as its national boundary.
Mhm.
You would lose immediately the West Philippine Sea. So just imagine that if the U.S. and its allies will withdraw from the South China Sea today, then it's game over. Thank you.
Justice, you have pushed for the Philippines to take its case to the United Nations General Assembly. Do you think there should be follow-up legal and diplomatic measures to catch up for the lost time and at the same time to regain momentum?
Yes, Ukraine did not go to the Security Council when Russia invaded Ukraine because, of course, there's a veto power. Russia has a veto power. China can also veto it. So Ukraine went to the General Assembly, and the General Assembly overwhelmingly condemned Russia for the invasion. What Russia is doing in Ukraine by kinetic force, by war, China is doing by gray zone tactics. The objective is the same, to overturn the international legal order, to seize territory and maritime zones by intimidation. That's the strategy of China. We will not fire a single shot, but we will get all your islands in the West Philippine Sea, your maritime zones, by intimidation, because we have these huge air and naval bases. We have huge warships that patrol daily in the West Philippine Sea. So by intimidation, China wants to grab our territories and maritime zones. Russia by physical force. But it's the same. It's all in violation of the UN Charter. Because the UN Charter says you cannot settle a dispute by force or threat of force, by use of force or threat of force. Russia is using force in Ukraine. China is using threat of force. In the West Philippines. So these two countries are out to reverse the international legal order. What Secretary De Rosario says is they are trying to bring back the rule of might is right. But if we do that, we go to the period just before the 1945 Charter, UN Charter, when war was the legitimate means of annexing territory. And if we go back to that order, we will have perpetual wars and even world wars, and the Third World War will be the last war. So we have to stop this. This is not only the battle of the Philippines, this is not the battle of Ukraine. The Europeans see this correctly. It's a battle for the world order. And if might is right rules, then you need vast amounts of nuclear arms. And Russia has that. But we cannot allow that. Thank you.
Dr. Batong Bakal, you have also written extensively on the fisheries aspect, the damage that has been done to our ecology. Because the reason I'm saying this is because some people are making an argument that, well, you know, the 30 years were quite difficult, but it was a wake-up call. It was the catalyst. At least now we have realized what we need, etc. But some people would say, I mean, Justice Carpio has already talked about the lost ground on the arbitration award, but other people say there are actually a lot of lost ground or lost resources in the West Philippine Sea. Can you shed light on that, and what you also feel should be the next way forward to reinforce and bolster the arbitration?
We lost a lot. We lost time, 6 years. Instead of this, what's going on right now, having the international community mobilize around us to help us assert our rights. This should have happened 2016.
2016, yeah.
And imagine if that had happened 2016, what would have happened, at least to say all these Chinese incursions into the West Philippine Sea, the fishing that went on, the clam digging, the reclamation of those islands, the construction of facilities on those islands, installation of weapons like missiles, surveillance equipment, sensors, radars, etc., jamming equipment. all of that could at the very least have been slowed down. But instead, they were able to finish it quickly. No? By 2018, no? Within 2 years, they were already in place. So we lost the time. We lost the opportunities, like political opportunities, particularly chairmanship of the ASEAN being the one that comes to mind, and other meetings that we organized during that time, which we could have used to heighten, to elevate our profile, and also to leverage our positions at the time in order to move things along even further. Resources, we've lost them because 6 years of fishing perhaps maybe 4 years, depending on, based on the data, no, at least 4 years worth of maximum over exploitation.
Yeah.
That's why our fishermen now in Zambales, Pangasinan are complaining, especially this year, walang huli, literally. They're coming home without catch. And they're having to subsist on support from NGOs and other entities because they literally cannot fish enough to survive. Our fishing industry that operates in the West Philippine Sea is now on the brink because they're not even finding it profitable to venture out there anymore because they're not even able to shelter in times of inclement weather like this in order to continue fishing operations. So it's become even unprofitable to simply venture out there. So we're losing as well access to resources. The petroleum sector, we've lost what, 6 years, more than 6 years of opportunity, of exploration opportunity, of finding some way to ensure energy security, especially since Malampaya is about to run out in a couple
And
of
dozen
years.
of our fishermen almost died, right?
Yeah.
Almost drowned, not far
So
away from the
we've-
area. Yeah.
Definitely, we've lost a lot. But now look at the sun. It's like suddenly a gate has been opened, and all these countries are now very strongly supporting our position because finally we are speaking out quite clearly. Finally, our people, especially Coast Guard, Navy, etc., are acting and showing that they are trying to protect our people out at sea. This should have happened 2016, no? And if we had started then, who knows where we would be right now. But now I think that now that the gates have been opened, no, we're just starting, no? And hopefully this will be sustained. It will continue to essentially escalate in a way, no? Not escalate in terms of armed conflict, but rather escalate in terms of our imagination and innovation in using all the various peaceful mechanisms that are available to us, no? Not just directly in relation to the South China Sea, but elsewhere, no? So for example, against illegal fishing, there are many other ways by which we can skin that cat.
Yeah.
Against this clam digging, all these environmentally destructive methods that have been let loose on the West Philippine Sea, there's a lot as well that we can do. So hopefully this will continue now that we're becoming
I think the data
more
was by
comfortable
the
with it.
Philippine Marine Science Institute of around $600 million of annual damage to our resources and ecology. I saw a study like that, and that's a conservative
Yes, that's a
estimate.
conservative estimate.
Just to monetize it so that people appreciate it. Because, you know, we had a former president who kept on saying, oh, we're going to get billions of dollars of investments from China. Maybe we have to be nice a little bit in the West Philippines. And I always remind them, look at what we're actually losing. Forget about the pledge drop. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we got a lot of promises. That's what we got.
That's good enough for
Just
some people,
promises.
apparently. Yes, Colonel Powell, what is your sense about the public diplomacy game? How important it was for the media, for thought leaders, for your institute, AMTI, our friends in the CSIs, to shed light on the shenanigans that were happening sometimes on a daily basis, right, by hundreds of militia forces from we know who, right? How important is that, and how important do you think this is continuing? I mean, and also a side question, maybe you want to do also a YouTube career, because I think the video you had a while ago was really good, right? I think we want to see more of that in the near future.
I did not make the video.
Yeah.
We live in an open society. We in the United States, you in the Philippines, Australia, other places, we live in open societies. An open society can feel like a weakness, right? Because there are all these pressures, the political back and forth. We don't do things efficiently, right? But it's also our superpower. So when you talk about a gray zone actor, and I know you before I said they want it to be gray because that's where if you want things to be comfortable and cooperative and non-confrontational and stable, you'll work with us under our terms. And that's the way everybody can be happy. But if, so having public opinion speak out, it's not just holding our leaders accountable, which we have to do in a democracy, but it's also empowering our leaders to say, I can't, look, you guys shined a laser at us. And there's this clown out at Stanford in his pajamas tweeting out things about what's going on. We have to do something because our people demand it. And that's actually a great, I have to always give credit to the Philippines for what has happened this year has been extraordinary. It's extraordinary. And it's extraordinary what the Philippine government has dared to do. But the pressure on the government has to be also extraordinary because they're going to get those messages. They're going to get them directly from the Chinese embassy. They'll get them from Chinese officials. They'll get them from business leaders because these messages go through all kinds of different avenues to say, shut up, get in line. Where did the compliance go? So public opinion is absolutely crucial in an open society to standing up to the bully.
Right. Thank you. I really appreciated especially the ending of the presentation about how the Philippines contributed to the international community, by what it did. I think the coffee was a bit too much. I'm talking faster than. But the thing is this, we did a lot for ASEAN. I mean, for heaven's sake, the Vietnamese, the Malaysians, even the Indonesians right now, right, are leveraging our arbitration award to stand their ground. The whole position of Indonesia in the North Natuna Sea, in one way or another, is related to us rejecting their 9-dash line and China's notion of a traditional fishing rights in God knows where, right? And the Malaysians, when they filed for extended continental shelf in late 2019, they essentially were invoking our arbitration award. So we helped the rest of ASEAN. And to be honest, here in the Philippines, we want to make sure that we get enough love in return. But that's a totally different conference and beyond my pay grade. Are there any questions in the crowd? Yes, Professor.
Ray, I would like to direct my questions to my Filipino colleagues who have studied Philippine foreign policy. It has to do with your reaction or comments regarding, although the government has done a lot of things, but sometimes I felt disturbed by some comments. So if I could ask you to give your comments regarding two statements that have been coming from the government in general. Number one, the foreign policy rhetoric of friends to all, enemies to none. If you could basically give your opinion. And of course, one statement come from a legislator. I won't have to mention the person's name, that we have to treat the United States and China equally, especially in terms of their presence of their ship and aircraft in our territory. Can I ask your comments regarding those two statements?
Thank you, Professor De Castro, for that. Yes, Justice Carpio, I mean, can